it's me, James. Happy Monday to you all. I am filming this Oracle Outlook video reading on Monday, February the 3rd, 2025. And I'm switching gears for the entire month of January. I used my personal Kipper deck, the Kipper of Himm, and I wanted to switch gears for February. So for this week's reading, I am using another one of my personal deck creations, and actually I will share with you all that this is one of my personal favorites in my personal deck collection. And we are going to be working with the Mitchell Playing Card Tarot deck. Like my Kipper deck, I made this in 2023. And as you see in the image on the title card that I made for the deck, you'll see a house of cards. And so for those of you who are new to my channel, first and foremost, welcome to my channel. Thank you for taking time to check out content. And while I'm acknowledging first-time viewers, if you are a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. So back to the story. So for those of you who didn't know, I got into card reading by having a dream. I've told this story countless times, and so I consider it to be my origin. Back in the day, I was a fan of superhero comic books, and so, you know, each superhero has an origin story, so this would be mine, right? So I had a dream in 1998, July the 7th, 1998, about reading playing cards, and in the dream I was reading playing cards for myself, and that led to me picking up the practice of card reading because I had not done that in waking life prior to the dream. And then I had a follow-up dream. And so in the follow-up dream, because I actually got into tarot first, that was my first deck of choice. So I bypassed the playing cards for a tarot deck. Okay, so I had a follow-up dream that I was in a school and I was in a classroom and there was a movie being projected onto a screen. And over to the right of the classroom, I noticed a spotlight, and on the floor in the spotlight was a house of cards. And so I walked over to the house of cards and I began picking them up. And when I looked in my hands at the cards, they were a combination of playing cards and tarot cards. And so I never forgot that dream because I looked at it as suggesting to me that the foundation of my card reading practice should be a combination of tarot and playing cards. And so that is what this deck is. So this deck is actually a combination of playing cards. I got a standard deck of cards and created the card backs, and then I added the major arcana cards from tarot, the 22 majors from tarot, and incorporated that into the deck. So this deck is actually a combination of tarot and playing cards. Okay, so with that origin story and the follow-up out of the way, I just wanted to explain the purpose of this deck in my card reading practice. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and lay out the cards. Just as in the previous Oracle Outlook video readings I've done so far for this year, I'm going to be working with a line of 5 because that is my favorite go-to spread to use at this point in time in my card reading practice. And we're going to shuffle the cards, and the intention, as always, is to ask for the information, the insight, and possible guidance and advice that is going to be most helpful as we move through the week ahead. So I'm shuffling that intention into the cards. I'll shuffle one more time and then I'll go ahead and stop. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. Fan the cards out. Alright, and so I'm going to be looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. So I have the 5 cards selected. I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up and put that to one side. Now I'm going to line up the cards in the order that they were selected. So we have 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Alright, so I read these a little differently than I would when I'm working with my Kipper deck. So the way that I work with these is that each card has a positional meaning, and then sometimes they interact with each other based on the suit, or if there's a face card, which would be a king, queen, or a jack, or a knight even, then they may offer a directional cue because they may be facing a particular way or direction. Okay, so first card would be what I call the origin card. Usually basically represents a situation that could be unfolding since it's the first card in the line, or it could be why are we asking the question that we're asking. So this card is the Six of Spades. Okay, so as a card that represents the opening situation, this is a card that can talk about possible troubles, blocks, and challenges because it is from the suit of spades, and that's how I read spades. And by the way, I should say, for those who may be wondering about my personal cartomancy style, my style was developed by 3 main important sources. So first was a book called It's Written in the Cards by Dr. Leo Lewis Martello. Second, the book, The Card Reader's Handbook by Regina Russell, one that I have made a video about. So if I remember, I will post a link to that video in the description box so you can learn more about that book. But those 2 sources were in agreement about a lot of the card meanings. And so as a cartomancer, I found it to be quite challenging. I couldn't find a lot of sources that would agree about the meanings of the cards. So when I found those 2, they became the foundational text for my practice. And then the third source was a gentleman by the name of J. David R. Curry. Again, he had a similar background. He used Martello and Regina Russell when I found him as his primary sources, along with his Italian grandmother for inspiration on reading the cards. So he is another one. His blog site or website is The Art of Cartomancy. And interestingly enough, at this point in time, I don't think he has made a lot of additions to the site. But it's great because he still talks a lot about his reading methods and like meanings of the cards and things like that. So prior material that would be helpful if you're curious about exploring that. Okay, but those were like the 3 foundational sources for my practice. Okay, and they all suggest that the suit of spades represents blocks, challenges, and obstacles. Okay, so now the number 6 in cartomancy, or at least in my practice, it represents 2 things: responsibility and communication. So there may be problems with people being responsible, or you are having challenges with your own sense of responsibility as the week unfolds, or there's going to be difficulties with communication. Okay, this card can suggest that there is a need to, I call it cutting the dead wood or eliminating the dead wood from your life. So it's a matter of looking at your life and seeing what's not working, and would you be willing to eliminate that or cut that out of your life, right? It may require, in some cases, difficult conversations, right? It may require a great deal of responsibility on your part, or that you're going to be eliminating the dead wood in the form of people not taking responsibility for themselves, or either what they say, communication, or what they do, actions, right? Basically, it's saying, like, this is a time to take a look at what's not working and what would you be willing to do to eliminate it from your life. Now, in a more positive sense, this card is also about progress. So it could be like maybe something that you have been thinking about, because this is also, for me, the suit of air. So that would be the mind. So something you've been thinking about in terms of planning, or you've implemented a plan and you get to see the progress of that. So again, the Six of Spades can represent difficulties with conversations, communication, challenges regarding responsibility, whether for yourself or other people interacting in your life, but also seeing some progress made. But the gist of it is also too about eliminating the dead wood from your life. So that is the Six of Spades. So the next card. Now this would be in the position of what we would expect. And okay, this is a fantastic card for expectations. Okay, so here we have the Empress card. And so for me, when I designed this deck, I wanted to kind of go with the idea that a lot of the playing cards were symbolic. So I wanted the majors, for the most part, to be symbolic. And so a lot of them don't have images of people. If you're tarot fluent, you would know that the Empress card usually has a woman depicted on the card. But I went more with the idea that she represents abundance. So I went with the image of a cornucopia for abundance. So this card can represent being fruitful, right? Or something bearing fruit. And how I love it coming after this, if we go with the Six of Spades, talking about progress being made, right? So you're seeing the fruit of that progress, right? Or eliminating the dead wood so something can grow and develop, right? Because this card can also be about growth and develop. Now, if I go with the idea that it can also represent maternal figures of authority, or female figures of authority, right? Because again, in the traditional tarot image, this would be depicted as a woman in the image, right? So this can represent matriarchy. So there could be difficulty with communication regarding maternal figures. So this could be relationships with mothers, or mother-like figures, or female authority figures, right? If we go with the idea of maybe a working situation, right? So this could be a woman in a position of authority or power, right? That kind of thing. The Empress is also about creativity, right? So it could just be a matter of, if you are wanting to, quote unquote, eliminate the dead wood from your life, it may be a matter of a creative process. You're like, meaning like you have to get your thinking cap on, or take a more creative approach in that endeavor. Yeah. So there is that as well. The only other thing I will say in the position of expectations is that for me, the Empress, going again with the more traditional imagery, is that she is more often than not in tarot art depicted as being pregnant. So for me, that can also represent this idea of expectations, right? Because the woman in the picture is expecting a baby, right? So it's a pun for expectations. So in the position of expectations, this is being emphasized. There may be a need to manage your expectations, especially around the idea of difficulty communicating with other people, or even better, the difficulty with responsibility of others, right? And so that could just be a matter of, it may be a matter of coming back to looking at what your expectations are or were in those particular instances or relationships. Yeah. So that's what I would say about the Empress. But it could just be a matter of also, too, going back to the image of a pregnant woman, it could be a matter of something that is still in its gestation, something that's in utero. I'm playing on the idea of pregnancy, right? Something that is still growing and developing, right? So there is that. But it could just be based on the first card. If it's about progress, then wanting to see some results of that progress, wanting it to bear fruit. That's what I would say about the Empress. Now, I also will say this, and then I'll move on to the next card. Whenever I get a major Arcana card in a reading, it usually carries more weight. So out of the two cards, this is the more emphasized message. Okay. Now we go to the middle card. The middle card for me can represent the heart of the matter, or the central issue, or a hidden influence, things like that. So here we have the Eight of Diamonds. Okay, so the Eight of Diamonds is a card that can represent finances, right? It's the suit of diamonds for me can represent money, finances, anything of a concrete, tangible, practical nature. It can also represent energy, but the 8 in numerology for me can represent power. It can represent abundance. It also can represent business and career, right? So this is back to the idea that if this was a job-related situation here, right, you know, difficulty with responsibility or difficulty with communication with a female authority figure, then it would be the central issue or focus may be with somebody's career, right? Now, if we're talking about eliminating the dead wood from your life and what's not working, right? And this is about abundance, then this follows that. This is about financial record keeping, bookkeeping, accounting, right? So for some people, there may be a focus on money and how money circulates in and out. And if you're wanting a greater sense of abundance with money, then it may be a matter of going back, right? Going back to the drawing board or the origin or to the source, or getting to the source or the root of a situation and looking at what do we need to cut out. And that may be in terms of spending if you're wanting to see maybe financial increase, right? So it could just be a matter of record keeping, bookkeeping, accounting. That is one way of looking at that. Another thing here with the Eight of Diamonds, this is a card for me that can represent spectacles. And so that's a nice term for eyewear or eyeglasses, right? And so as I'm looking at this, this is a reminder for me that it's time for my annual eye exam. So if you're like me, this may be a nod for you to consider getting your eyes checked. Now, that's just all I'm going to say about that, because I am not a medical practitioner. So that is always one of my disclaimers. Right? And going back to the other disclaimer, since I talked about record keeping, bookkeeping, accounting, I'm also not a financial advisor or planner. Right? Those are my two of my disclaimers when I'm reading cards in a general sense or for the public. Okay, but aside from that, going back to the idea that this can represent the eyes, so this could just be a matter of observation, keeping your eyes on something, right? So it could just be a matter of being more watchful, being more observant, if you see it, don't act like you didn't see it, right? I'm thinking of the expression like, once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? So there's that. So again, the Eight of Diamonds can represent, in a financial sense, a need for record keeping, bookkeeping, accounting, paying attention to your circulation in terms of money, how it comes in, how it goes out, the flow of it, right? And then going back to incorporating the other two cards, if there is some elimination of dead wood, then it could just be a matter of taking a look at maybe expenditures, what you're spending money on. Or that's getting me to say something else about this card. But taking a look at what you're spending money on and seeing where you can make some cuts. Now, if I make this about the larger picture, then this could be, again, about the lesson here, because the Major Arcana card can talk about important lessons or important issues or events. If I go with these two cards, and it could just be taking a look at the way that money is being cut in a larger sense, right? And that would be from institutions, institutions outside of you, right? So it could just be a matter of, and the cuts and how they might affect you on a personal level, right? Oh, so the other thing that I wanted to say here, because I talked about money and spending money, this card could also be about energy. Like I said before, the suit of diamonds can represent energy. So it's taking a look at what are you spending your energy on, or what are you investing your energy into, and that would be a more metaphorical or even metaphysical question, right? And do you need to cut out certain things that you are putting your time, your energy, your resources into because you are not getting a return on that investment? Now, I would normally say that with the Seven of Diamonds, so it'll be interesting if the Seven of Diamonds appears. But with the Eight of Diamonds, it's about observing or noticing or paying attention to where you are putting your energy, right? And that would make sense because if I go back to the Empress, and this is for women in particular, I have found this over the years of reading cards. I've been reading cards for 25 years at this point. And more often than not, when the Empress turns up, it can represent women who spend so much time and energy as caretakers, spending that time and energy on focusing on other people to their own detriment, meaning that they neglect their own self-care. So if you're a woman watching this and that resonates with you, then these three cards are suggesting to you, what can you do to take yourself from the last place on your list and kind of elevate your status just a little bit, and giving yourself a greater sense of self-care. And that might be empowering other people to be more responsible, which would allow you to do that, right? Now, in some cases, I'm going to say that may be more challenging, right? I'm thinking of like if you are caring for young children, or if you are a caretaker of elderly people, like such as parents or grandparents, that may be more challenging. But these three cards are asking you, if that resonates with you, to consider how you can give yourself a greater gift of self-care, right? So that's what I'm seeing with these three cards. Now, fourth card in the line usually for me represents guidance or advice. So let's take a look at that. And here we have, okay, so here we have the Eight of Spades. Okay, so again, we have two cards from the suit of spades. I look for patterns. So that's the first pattern, is we have some problems, challenges, obstacles to move through this week. We also have two eights repeating. And so again, we have this theme of either power, abundance, or even justice. Because in my deck, the card number 8 is the justice card, right? So there may be an issue here regarding justice. And I'm going back to this card because the 8 of spades can represent a sense of injustice, right? And so it may be injustice if I go with what I was saying earlier about institutions cutting money, right? Cutting money in some way to the general public at large, right? So something with that. And so there's a sense of injustice. And injustice in that case would mean something that's unfair, right? So there is that idea. Now for me, the 8 of diamonds being about eye care, right? Visiting, and I said visiting an optometrist, that would make sense here because this is a card of the doctor. So we have two cards here that may suggest, again, for people really needing to have their eyes examined. And so for me, I'm paying attention to this and making a mental note that I need to schedule my appointment for my own eye care, right? So there is that. Another thing with this card is that it can also represent headaches. And so for me, as I said in prior videos, that I'm a person who experiences headaches and migraines. And so for me, I'm paying attention. So this could be literal taking care of yourself, right? This would be, again, physical, material, tangible. So this could be about your own sense of your physical body, right? Diamonds. And then here with the 8 of spades possibly being headaches. So it could be literal paying attention to what are triggering headaches for you, right? So it could be a matter of, and I said record keeping, right? One of the things I suggest as a person that, especially because it was very helpful for me, is that people take time to record their experiences in a headache journal. I had a great deal of awareness when I did that. So what you do is you record from a scale of 1 to 10 the intensity of the headache. You record maybe the last time you ate something, last time you got some sleep. And you're looking for external physical triggers for the headache, And I learned that for me, if I go too many hours without a meal, it can produce a headache. If I consume things that are caffeinated, or have a great deal of caffeine in it, and then I don't, after some period of time, I will have a headache because my body's going through caffeine withdrawal. So it's a matter of you becoming more aware, monitoring your own body, your own habits, routines, lifestyle, right? And then you get to decide what you're going to eliminate, right? And then it would be for a greater sense of self-care, right? So again, that would be for those people who are like me, who experience headaches and migraines, right? Now, it could be the more metaphorical, right? You're paying attention to the things in life that give you a headache, right? And that's, again, metaphorical. And then what would you be willing to do to cut that out or eliminate that? If you can, right? There may be certain contexts or situations in which you can't, extricate yourself or remove yourself, right? So you kind of have to find another way to cope with that, right? So that's what I want to say about the 8 of spades. Again, it can represent a visit to the doctor, and that would make sense coming after a card that can represent the eyes, right? It could also represent headaches and migraines. things like that. It can also represent a sense of injustice or somehow experiencing treatment that in your mind and possibly in the mind of others that would be considered unfair, and moving through that, right? Okay. So then, last card, this would be the outcome. And then here we have, okay, so here we have the Jack of Clubs. And for me, the Suit of Clubs is a card that talks about either something having to do with the public, something of a social nature, work or business, or something that we are working towards. Coming back to this card being progress, this would be another card that, by the suit itself, can represent progress. So now the Jack of Clubs, one of its chief meanings for me is that this card can represent an employee. So again, we have this issue, right, for those of us who are either out in the working world or business-minded, career-minded with the 2 8s, right? Because that would be a theme with the 8s as well, business and career. Then this card is an employee, right? And so for me, I'm looking at this, and so going back to issues regarding communications or difficulties with work, one of my jobs, I do have a manager who, my immediate manager, is a woman. So there may be issues for me that I'm going forward here, paying attention to job-related things, because in the end, I'm an employee in that dynamic, right? So the other interesting thing to note is that direction. He's looking outside of the line. So what I may do is widen this and draw another card to see what he's facing, because right now there's not a card there, right? The other thing that is important, because I talked about larger institutions, a sense of injustice, bookkeeping, accounting, things of that nature. Also too, money and observing how the money comes in and goes out. There may be some cuts regarding money. Then this would make sense, because this is the card of either the podcaster, the journalist. So there's information, because jacks represent news or messages for the public, right? So this could be public news, social news, somebody presenting information for the masses that's important, and it may regard money, a sense of justice or injustice. I'm going to go more with the injustice and unfair treatment. And then, but it centers on, or it starts with the idea of something being eliminated, right? And what's going to be presented by the institutions who are doing that is going to be that they're doing it to eliminate the dead wood, meaning to kind of make things run better or work better. But that might not necessarily be the story or the truth, right? This would be injustice, right? There may be something else going on there. But again, this would be about learning about that. In the end, learning about that. So it may be important for people to find sources of media that they trust. And I'm saying that especially coming after the 8 of Spades, that they trust for getting the news. And it's going to be maybe in the form more of, and I'm going to say maybe not legacy or corporate media, but maybe more independent media sources, right? Because I'm sticking with the idea that this is more about podcasters in particular, okay? So that's what I'm seeing with that, but it may be issues about trying to work things out. Now, I will say this. When I get a suit of spades and then followed by the suit of clubs, both these cards would suggest a problem or a challenge, spades, that gets worked out, clubs. So in the end, there could be something that gets worked out, but it may look about something that's unfair for employees in certain working situations. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to widen the camera, and I'm going to slide the cards over so I can draw another card for the Jack of Clubs. Okay, so we have enough space, I think, for another card. Let me go ahead and get the deck in hand. I have it right here. I'm going to shuffle. And what I'm doing is I'm asking for more information about the Jack of Clubs. What other news or message or information could this card bring to the table? And that pun was intended. Okay, gonna once again cut the deck. I think you all can see that. See the fan? Okay. So now I'm looking in the fan for one card getting my attention. And this card gets my attention right off the bat. I'm going to put that there. So now let's take a look at the card. I'm going to slide these down just a little bit more to give that card a little bit of space. Okay. So here we have the card. Turning it over. All right. So here we have the 3 of clubs. Okay. So first off, note that we have another card from the suit of clubs. So again, this could be work, business. It could be something having to do with the public, something having to do with something of a social nature, or something that we are working on in terms of effort and seeing some progress made. Now, the 3 is a great number to have. First and foremost, I see a pattern. We have the 3rd card from the major arcana, the Empress. So the Empress actually governs this card, right? So there is a sense of creativity here, some sort of results, because that's meanings of the Empress card. So something that is in its growth and development stages, okay? So there's that. Now, the first thing I will say, if this is about work or business, this is a side note, or maybe somebody who's working on their own thing, business, then this is known as the author card. So this could be a card about writing, right? So somebody may be writing something, and it may be more nonfiction and fiction, going with the idea that this can represent news. So it may be a sense of nonfiction in terms of genre. That's what I'm getting. The other thing here is that this card can be about training. If this is about employees, then this card can be about training, on the job training. So when I get this as a pair, usually for me, in my own personal experience, this would be me going to my job and having to train new people coming in. And even though people think I'm a wonderful trainer and teacher, it is not something that I always enjoy, especially in this day and age. In my experience, it's harder to train new people because most new people don't actually want to be present at the job that I'm referring to, in my experience, or, they just don't want to learn, right? And so it makes my job a little bit harder if I find that the person is not open and receptive based on whatever's going on in their mind and in their life at the time they get the job, that kind of thing. So it makes it a little harder on my end. But the higher ups, my boss continues to have me do it because people always talk about, oh, James is a great teacher and a great trainer. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. All right, so there may be something about that. Now, it could be, too, as an employee, you're going into, because he's facing this card, you are going into your job situation with something new that you need to learn. So there may be an additional training thing or training component to your job, that kind of thing. Now, if you're a business person, this would make sense here about paying attention to your bookkeeping, your accounting, that kind of thing, if you want your business to grow, because this is about the growth and development of business or an increase in work or business, right? Now, it could also be too for some people due to cuts being made in particular jobs, right? You may find your work increases, because this card can also be about the increase and expansion of work, right, for employees. Again, he's facing this card. The Jack is facing this card, right? So it could be like you are going to be facing additional work because of cuts being made. And that could be departments getting downsized, people getting laid off, people being terminated, whatever the case may be. But you may find your work increasing, right? So that is one way of looking at it. If you're an employee, if you are self-employed, like I said, then this is about what can you do to increase your business, to grow your business, right? And it could be a matter of coming up with a plan, writing it down, right? Because again, this is the author card. But again, if you are an actual author, this is about, putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard and getting your manuscript done, right? You're being encouraged with this card to get it done, right? And then the last thing I will say, again, this is more metaphorical and metaphysical. You are the author of your life. Each and every one of us is the author of our life. And so it could be a matter of, in the bigger picture, Empress, in the bigger picture, that you are being encouraged to make some edits, some revisions to your story in order to have a more satisfactory, productive, and fulfilling life, right? So on that metaphysical and metaphorical note, I'm going to wrap things up and end it here. This is James and Mitchell signing out. If you made it all the way through the video at this point, thank you so much for your time. I know in this day and age, there are lots of places you can put your time and energy and attention, and I'm so glad that you were willing to give it to me throughout this reading. So thank you. Signing out again. Going to be holding space until we come back to this space for our next video reading. So until then, I'm hoping that you're having a great day, and I hope that you have a great week. Take care.